सङ्गीतनाट्यनयशब्दनयादिदक्षं लङ्कापुरीदहनमाश्रितकल्पवृक्षं श्रीरामचन्द्रचरणाम्बुजचञ्चरीकं वातात्मजं गुरुमहं मनसा स्मरामि। प्रपद्ये यत्पदद्वन्द्वं धर्मो निर्भयतां ययो अयोध्याधिपतं वन्दे श्रीरामं जानकीपतिम्। Namaskaram to all. Ramo Rama Ramati Rajanam Abhavan Kathaha Ramabhutam Jagadabhut Rame Rajyam Prashasati. Thus, Maharshi Valmiki describes Sri Ramarajyam as a time when the whole world was fervent about Sri Rama and was resonant with his holy name. This is exactly what we see today, which makes a topic based on Sri Ramayana a natural choice for my brief talk as a testament to the benediction conferred by Brahma upon Sri Valmiki that the story of Rama would flourish as long as the mountains and the rivers would exist. Innumerable literary works based on Sri Ramayana continue to sanctify this world till today. I'm here to discuss about one of the recent additions to the vast inventory of Ramayana literature, that is the Ramakathamrutasara of Sri Krishna Premi Swamigal. Sri Krishna Premi Swamigal, fondly known as Sri Sri Anna, as many of you all would know, was one of the greatest exponents of the Bhakti Sampradaya of the 20th and the early 21st centuries. He was a prolific author, and he has to his credit about more than a dozen of Sanskrit works belonging to different genres such as kavyas. There are a few philosophical texts and many stotras. And each of these are noted for their poetic quality as well as the profound devotional fervor. The Ramakathamrutasara, as suggested by the name, is an abridged version of the glorious life of Sri Rama. It is a rare devotional hymn that expounds the philosophy of bhakti through the story of Sri Rama. It consists of 105 verses, which are composed in different meters, predominantly in the Shardola Vikridata, Mandakranta, Shikharini, and Upajati Vrittas. As it is common among the Vaishnava Acharyas to consider Srimad Ramayana as a text on bhakti, it is not surprising that Sri Sri Anna also regards Ramayana as the supreme scripture on bhakti. In fact, not just Ishvara Bhakti or Rama Bhakti, he beautifully portrays the bhakti element in the Ramayana through a verse which says, Saumitrer Bhratra Bhakti Dasharatha Sutate Tata Bhaktischa Devyaha Sitaya Bhartra Bhakti Sukhayati Hridayam Raja Bhaktir Jananam Sutasya Swami Bhakti Mihirakulanidhe Mitra Bhakti Kapescha Gradhrasya Prema Bhakti Nishicarapatehe Shatra Bhaktischa Rama. That is, Lakshmana exhibited what is Bhratra Bhakti, fraternal love, devotion in the form of fraternal love. On the other hand, you yourself exhibited what is Pitra Bhakti or devotion towards the parents or towards your father. Sita represented the devotion of a wife towards the husband. And the subjects of Kosala demonstrated what is Raja Bhakti. Suta, that is Sumantra's devotion towards the master, and Sugriva's devotion towards a friend, and the love or the devotion in the form of love exhibited by Jatayu. And last but not the least, the devotion in the form of aversion exhibited by Ravana. In short, Ramayana is a text on all forms of bhakti, whether it is Ishvara Bhakti or Raja Bhakti, etc. Of course, needless to say that it is theism or bhakti proper that is the subject matter here. So, since bhakti is defined as sa para anurakti ishvare, sa para anurakti ishvare by Maharishi Shandilya, which means bhakti is supreme love towards the God. It necessitates that the object of bhakti needs to be a God or a divinity. In this matter, there has always been a debate among scholars on whether Valmiki intended to portray the divinity of Sri Rama or not. As an answer to this, the poet cites instances from Sri Ramayana which amply establish the divinity of Sri Rama. Nari Shapa Vimochanat, Shivadhanur Bhangat, Bhragustambhanat, Pauranam Cha Vimohanat, Khagapater Moksha Pradanaadapi, Nidam Bhuvanidhi Rudhadarpadamanat, Brahmastra Sammananat, Nana Rupa Nidarshanat, Prakatitam Loke, Rahasyam Tava. That is redemption of Ahalya, the breaking of the bow of Shiva, overpowering Parashurama, deluding the subjects of Kosala who followed Sri Rama, bestowing liberation unto Jatayu, crushing the pride of the sea god, and voluntarily allowing himself to be bound by the Brahmastra. All these clearly establish the divinity of Sri Rama. Further, the poet establishes Sri Rama as Bhagavan. Bhagavan, as the Puranas define, is the one who possesses the six bhagas or opulences, which are Vairagya, dispassion, Moksha, freedom, Yasha, fame, Shri, wealth, Aishwarya, lordship, and Dharma. So the poet says, Vairagyam vipina prayana samaye Sitam ananyam shriyam gridhrasyapi vimokshadanamatudam paudatsya yuddhe yashah dharme chapi ratim sureshcha nikhidaihi sevyatvametadrisham च ऐश्वर्यं च विलोक्य वच्मि भगवान Sri Rama eva swayam. His dispassion was displayed in his uh, exile, that is, his acceptance of the exile, and Sri Sita being his inseparable consort. Shri, he is the possessor of Shri. He did bestow liberation upon Jatayu, and his fame is eternally established through his conflict with Ravana, and his love for Dharma is already well known, as we say Rama Vigrahavan Dharma. And his lordship or Aishwarya is established by the fact that he is revered by all the Devatas. Therefore, the poet says, Vachmi Bhagavan Sri Rama eva swayam. Rama himself is Bhagavan. Of the endless auspicious qualities of the Lord, most of the Vaishnava saints enlist the important ones, which are Saundarya or elegance, Saushilya or courtesy, Saulabhya, accessibility, Gambhirya, profundity, Audarya, magnanimity, Vatsalya, parental affection, Arjava, straightforwardness or honesty, and Karunya, compassion. The poet also alludes to instances from the Ramayana where the aforementioned qualities of Sri Rama were displayed. Saundaryam Janakaya Tata Savidhe Saushidhyamadarashitam सौलभ्यं च गुहाय वारिनिधये गाम्भीर्यमत्यद्भुतम् औदार्यं च विभीषणाय कपये वात्सल्यम् अपि आर्जवम् राक्षस्यै च मयि प्रभो रघुपते कारुण्यम् अव्याजतः. The poet says, Janaka, Dasharatha, Guha, the sea god, Vibhishana, Hanuman, and Shurpanakha were testaments to the qualities of elegance, courtesy, accessibility, profundity, magnanimity, motherly love, and straightforwardness, respectively. At last, the poet refers to himself as the recipient of the pure compassion, Avyaja Karuna of Sri Rama. Sri Rama is further explained as the source of the four Purusharthas. संवादैर्बहुभिः स्वधर्ममहिमा साकेतधाम्निस्तुतः कान्तारे चरता त्वया करुणया मोक्षश्च दत्तः सताम् सुग्रीवाय समाश्रिताय सहसा कामो वितीर्णः प्रभो ह्यर्थश्चापि विभीषणाय विहितो हत्वा च लङ्कापतिम्. That is, it may be loosely translated as, through many of your conversations at Saketa, you expounded dharma. During your exile, you did bestow upon liberation upon many of the seers and the pious souls. You granted the desire of Sugriva, Kama of Sugriva, and Artha unto Vibhishana in the form of the kingdom of Lanka by killing Ravana. All these said, the poet is very clear in stating that the very purpose of the Avatara Prayojana, is exclusively to bestow devotion. He says, Leela Natya Nidarshanena Kripaya Lokasya Bhaktim Param Datum Manusha Bhavametya Charato Nana Vidham Te Katham. That is Leela Natya, the mere Leela of Manusha Bhava, of the mortal form, and the various uh, deeds that he performed, were all exclusively intended to confer parabhakti upon the mortal, the embodied souls on this earth. It is further stated that many of the Leelas during the Ramavatara were purely intended to reveal the greatness of his devotees. So the poet says, Bhaktanam Bhavabandha Mochana Karasyaivam Bhujangena cha Brahmastrena cha Bandhane Tava Vibho Kim Karanam me vada Pakshindrasya cha Marutescha Vibhavam Bhaktottamasya Adarat Loke Darshagitum Kripajadanidhe Badho Bhavanstvam Swayam. That is, as we see in the Yuddha Kanda, there are instances where Sri Rama was bound once by the Nagastra and later allowed himself to be bound by the Brahmastra. So the poet wonders, he says, you are the one who liberates the devotees from samsara. How is it possible that you yourself get bound? To this he says, it is certainly to establish the greatness of your great devotees, Garuda, who freed you from the Nagapasha, and of Hanuman, who brought down the Sanjeevani. While referring to the auspicious qualities of Sri Rama, the poet also takes into account a few instances from the epic over which ethical questions are raised by cynics. The poet disproves the aspersions by establishing such acts of Sri Rama as his transcendental leelas, either to indirectly confer his grace, anugraha, or with a view to instruct mankind, upadesh. And this is effectively achieved through the use of poetic figures such as Utpreksha and Nidarshana. For instance, as far as Vadivata is concerned, the poet presents various reasons which could have been the possible rationale behind the Parokshivadha or killing Vali from behind. Firstly, he says that Valivadha, killing Vali from behind, was a self-inflicted censure by Sri Rama. That is, he voluntarily embraced this criticism. The reason that he gives is that a single blemish amidst several excellences does not diminish a person's reverence. He perhaps wanted to establish this through his own charita, that despite all the criticisms, Sri Rama remains the Dharma Murti for us. So, this is what Rama must have intended and embraced this criticism. He says, Nana Sadguna Samyutopi Manuje Doshepi Sandrishyate Tasmat Tasya tu Pujyata tu Bhuvane Na Prapnoyat Sankshayam Evam Darashayata Vadhastu Vihitah Sugriva Shatrostvaya Lila Manusha Vigrahasya Bhavatah Poveda Guhyam Param. So perhaps to establish this, you must have killed Vadi, the enemy of Sugriva. Who knows the thoughts of your mind? Who can infer the thoughts of your mind? Now, another reason that he says that a possible objection would be, if he intended to kill Vadi, why should he ask Sugriva for a challenge to challenge Vadi? Instead, Sri Rama could have directly challenged Vadi. To this, the poet gives another reason. He says, Devanam kapirupinam rachayitum साहाय्यमेवात्मनो जातानां निधनं भवेद्यदि रणे यदि रणं कुर्यामहं वादिना मत्वैवं निहतस्त्वया हि मृगया धर्मेण शक्रात्मजः स्वामिन्स्ते हृदयं प्रगल्भममलं जाने कृपासागरः. That is, in the event of a direct combat between Sri Rama and Vali, it would have resulted in a war, in implying the participation of all the Vanaras. And the destruction of the Vanaras would have become inevitable. When the very purpose of the Vanaras was to serve Sri Rama, how could Sri Rama afford to kill them? So that is the reason that the poet says that Rama did not want a direct confrontation with Vali. And now the poet also refers to the concept of uh, Ishvara rewarding the fruits of karma in a manner that is not physically seen, in a paroksha way. That is how it is described in our scriptures, that the karma phala is rewarded in a paroksha or indirect or invisible manner by the gods. So this is beautifully represented by the poet. He says that Sri Rama is Ishvara, and it is his swabhava or inherent nature to reward the karma phala in a paroksha or indirect way or invisible manner. So during the instance of Vadivadha, Rama perhaps forgot his role as a mortal and, true to his nature as a god, chastised the sinful Vali in a paroksha manner. This is poetically conveyed through Utpreksha. He says, Devah karma phalam dadatihi niranam paroksham ashrityahi tvam devosi manushya nataka karo vismritya vesham tvaya swabhavyam tava cheshtitam hi bhuvane sandarshitam vadinah parokshena vadhena raghavarabhir bhatyeva meghavratah. That is, again coming to the same point, Raghavarabhi bhatyeva meghavratah. Even if the clouds of criticisms surround the son of Sri Rama, this resplendence is by no means reduced. As far as Agni Pariksha 2 is concerned, the poet makes a very logical point. He says the act was exclusively to establish the greatness of Sita. since Sri Rama must have been fully aware of the fact that the fire cannot consume Sita, cannot burn Sita, whose compassion turned even the fire cold. That is, the fire which was set on Hanuman's tail was made to turn cold by Sita's blessings. So, under such circumstances, how could the fire even destroy her? So, this is merely to establish the Pativratya or the greatness of Sita's Pativratya. Yat karunyarasena purvam anadaha shito bhavan marutehe dagdhum tancha videharajatanyam agnih katham shaknuyat evam vetti tathapi deva bhuvane mahatmyamasyaha bhavan puri kartum avap kopamadhikam bhutva kripavadithe. Again, as far as the episode of Sita Tyaga is concerned, the poet calls the incident once again as a mere Leela, since Sita, who is Shri, is the Anapayini of Vishnu, is therefore inseparable from Sri Rama. The poet does not believe in separation of Sri Rama and Sita. He says, Sahi Shri Ramrata Kadapi Bhagavan Natvam Jahate Prabho Leela Matramidam Smarami Nikhidam Devyas Charitram Tvaham. He further states that the whole episode of Sita Tyaga was enacted only to establish the Mahatmya of Sri Ramayana. That is, the story of Sri Rama confers Samrajya, sovereignty, even upon the destitute, through the example of Kusha and Dhawan, who are brought up as Munibadakas. दूनानाम अपि पुण्यरामकथया साम्राज्यसिद्धिर्भवेत् इत्यर्थं भुवने प्रदर्शितुमहो निश्चित्य पुत्रेण हि सीतां प्रेषितवान् असीति विपिने पूर्वं मुनेराश्रमं मन्ये मूढजनापवाददुरितव्याजेन सीतापते. Now coming to the uh, core principles of the Bhakti Marga. The concept of Bhagavatapachara, or offending a devotee, is regarded as the greatest sin. And the poet considers that the burning of Lanka was a direct consequence of Bhagavatapachara committed towards Hanuman. वादाग्रस्थितवह्निना रघुपते दूतस्य ते मारुतेः दग्धाभूत रजनीचरेन्द्रनगरीत्येवं प्रथा किन्त्वहं मन्ये तादृशवैभवं दशमुखात् भीतस्य नास्तीति च स्वामिन्स्तावककिङ्कराय विहितं पापं ददाह स्वयं. That is, Agni, who was afraid of Ravana, could not have dared to consume Lanka. The burning of Lanka, the destruction of Lanka, was purely because of the humiliation of Hanuman, the greatest of your devotees, who had presented himself before Ravana as a Duta. Further, it was earlier mentioned about Ravana's Shatra Bhakti. So, as in case of Adhyatma Ramayana, Sri Anna also considers Ravana as a covered devotee, Prachanna Bhakta of Sri Rama. He says in one of the verses in the Yuddha Kanda that Sitam Bhakti Yuto Bhajan Pratidinam Dhyayan Sada Matravat Tvat Kopam Samavaptu Kama Ivatam Santarjayamasacha. That is, Ravana remained devoted to Sita and treated her like his own mother, and he would often threaten her only in order to incur the anger of Sri Rama. As far as the Bhakti Mahatmya or the greatness of Bhakti is concerned, the poet refers to the ability of Hanuman to cross over the ocean as a result of his devotion towards Sri Rama, the one who is Taraka Brahma, or the one who enables the mankind to cross over the ocean of samsara. यन्नाम स्मरणेन केवलमहो संसारवारान्निधिं तीर्त्वा यान्ति परं पदं रघुपते वाञ्छन्ति यद्योगिनः दूतस्ते रवणाम्बुधिं परिमितं त्वद्भक्तमुख्यस्त्वयं क्रीडन्नेव ततारवायुतनयः किञ्चित्रमत्र प्रभो. That is when, by the mere remembrance of your name, men can cross over the ocean of samsara. What is so surprising? If Hanuman, who is the foremost among your devotees, could cross over the Ravanambudhi, which is after all parimita or limited in size, then the poet comes to an interesting discussion here. The Valmiki Ramayana clearly speaks of Dasharatha ascending the Swarga, and in the Yuddha Kanda, there is an instance where Dasharatha meets Sri Rama from the Swarga after the Ravanavadha. So, a pertinent question is bound to arise that if the name of Sri Rama can grant moksha as the Taraka Nama, Taraka Brahma, the name of Taraka Brahma, why is it that Dasharatha did not get moksha? And it is known that Dasharatha died grieving over the separation from Sri Rama. So his thoughts certainly were uh, fixed upon Sri Rama at the time of his death. Then why did he not attain moksha? So this the poet very beautifully explains that. पुत्र व्याज कृतात्तु नाम भजनात् संप्राप मुक्तिं पराम पापी कश्चित् अजामिदोपि भगवन् किं ते पिता नारहति स्वच्छन्दं नृपतिः प्रियं सुतवरं पट्टाभिषिक्तं प्रभो द्रष्टुं त्वामिह काङ्क्षया निवसति स्वर्गे सुरैरर्चितः. According to the poet, if a sinful Ajamida could get moksha for unwittingly uttering the name of Sriman Narayana, why would Dasharatha not get moksha? The poet says it is by his own choice that Dasharatha preferred to go to the Swarga, only to see his son being coronated as the king of Kosala. Then the poet gives instances of the Navavidha Bhakti, Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Pada Sevana, Archana, Vandana, Dasya, Sakhya, and Atmanivedana from the Srimad Ramayana. He says, चारित्र श्रवणे स्वयं रघुपतिः संकीर्तने तत्सुतौ सीता च स्मरणे तद अंघ्रिभजने कैकेयी पुत्रोऽप्यभूत् पूजायां शबरी प्रभञ्जनसुतो दास्ये सुमन्त्रो नतौ सर्वस्यात्मनिवेदने निशिचरः सख्ये प्लवंगाधिपः. That is, Sri Rama himself set an example of Shravana as his sons Kush and Dava did for Kirtana. Sita exhibited Smarana. Bharata was an example of Pada Sevana. Shabari was that of Archana. Hanuman was that of Dasya. Sumantra of Vandana. Vibhishana of Atmanivedana. And Sugriva of Sakhya. Speaking as a continuity of Vibhishana's Atmanivedana, it must be noted that Vibhishana Shanagati is considered by most of the Vaishnava Acharyas as a perfect example of the doctrine of Prapatti or Sharanagati. And this is beautifully described by the poet by highlighting all the 6 angas of Prapatti, namely Anukulyasya Sankalpaha, that is, the resolve to act in a manner that pleases the Lord, Pratikulyasya Varjanam, avoidance of everything that is not for the pleasure of the Lord, or that is contrary to the pleasure of the Lord. Rakshishyati te Vishwasah, complete faith in the protective grace of the Lord. Goptritva Varanam Tata, seeking the protection of the Lord. Atmanikshepa, surrendering oneself. And Karpanya, the feeling of helplessness. The poet beautifully says, Tvat Padambuja Sevanam Raghupate Sarvanukulam Tviti Smritva Tat Pratikula Bandhu Suhradam Sangam Vihayapicha विश्वासेन विभीषणस्त्रजगतां गोप्तारमेवाश्रयन् स्वामिन्स्त्वां शरणं गतः सुविनयः सम्प्राप्य सौख्यं परम्, which may be loosely translated as considering the service unto the feet of Sri Rama as Anukula and abandoning his kinsmen who were opposed to it, with complete faith in the Lord who protects the three worlds, the helpless or the humble Vibhishana took refuge in the Lord. As a result, attained great felicity. Apart from Vibhishana, the poet also refers to the three brothers of Sri Rama as ideal prapannas or surrendered beings. So basically, prapatti has different approaches. The two main approaches are illustrated by the analogy of a baby monkey and the analogy of a kitten. So just as a baby monkey tightly holds the mother, a prapanna is expected to seek the refuge of the Lord and is expected to, that is, great effort is expected on the part of the prapanna also, like performance of the scriptural injunctions, etc. So there has to be some effort on the part of the prapanna. On the other hand, we have the analogy of the kitten or the Marjara Kishoranyaya. The first one is Margata Kishoranyaya. In case of Marjara Kishoranyaya, the mother cat holds the kitten tightly with her teeth in such a manner that does not hurt the kitten, and there is no effort required on the part of the kitten for movement from one place to another. So this is the second approach where the devotee completely surrenders to the grace of the Lord with no obligation on his part. The poet says, Kaikeyi Tani, that is Bharata, who took shelter in you, was like a kitten, Marajada Vatsa. Kaikeyi Taniyastvareka Sharano Marajada Vatso Yatha. Saumitrastvagi Bhaktiman Dridhamati Keshasya Vatso Yatha. On the other hand, Lakshmana, who was a great devotee of yours, he was like a monkey's baby. That is, Lakshmana represented the Markata Kishoranyaya by constant efforts on his part. Now, Shatrughna is cited here as an example of the third approach, which is Acharya Nishtha Prapatti, where the prapanna, uh, where the prapatti is done on behalf of the prapanna by his guru. So Shatrughna, who remained devoted to Bharata, is cited as an example of the third form or Acharya Nishtha Prapatti. So verse concludes as Shatrughno Bharatasya Parakamale Vinyasya Bharo Mahan Etesham Abhirakshane Tava Vibho Diksha Swadharmasya. So the three brothers followed the respective approaches of Prapatti, and you were committed to the protection of them. Having mentioned about the Navavidha Bhakti, it must also be mentioned that authorities on Bhakti Rasa, such as Rupa Goswami, they recognize 12 forms of Bhakti Rasas. And among them, they consider 5 as the principal or Mukhya Bhakti Rasas, namely Vatsalya, parental love, Madhurya, conjugal love, Sakhya, friendship, Dasya, servitude, and Shanta or neutral love. The poet also gives examples of the Mukhya Bhakti Rasas from the Ramayana. He says, Vatsalyam Mataraste Gururapi Drupatihi Gradhararajastathaiva Madhuryam Janakitu Plavagapatirapi Vyadharajopi Sakhyam Kainkaryam Vayusunu Munijananikarah Shantabhavam Tunanyam Kritvaivam Prema Bhavam Bhavati Raghupate Purnakama Bhavanti. That is, the mothers of Sri Rama, Dasharatha, Vasishtha, and Jatayu are the examples of Vatsalya, Sita of Madhurya, Sugriva and Guha are that of Sakhya, the son of Vayu Hanuman, of Kainkarya or Dasya, and the rishis such as Sharabhanga, Sutiksha, and others were of Shanta. Yet another important philosophy of the Bhakti Sampradaya is to consider the Lord as subservient to the devotee, as Bhagavatam says, Ham Bhakta Pradhina. So Lord is often called as Bhakta Pradhina. This is also referred to here. The poet cites uh, one instance from the Aranya Kanda, uh, where Lakshmana and Rama engage in a discussion about the excellences of Bharata, virtues of Bharata. So Rama is said to have fondly remembered the great qualities of Bharata, to which the poet says, Godavarya Vimala Sadide, Kanja Kalhara Lode, Snatva Devya, Madhura Madhuram Bhashamanam Prabhum Tvam, Bhratra Sakam, Bharata Charitam Bhavayantam Prabhum Tvam, Smritva Dravati Hridayam, Bhakta Bhaktam Kripadum. So here, the remembrance of Bharata by Sri Rama is stated as an instance where Rama exhibits his devotion towards Bharata. Therefore, the poet uses a very unique adjective for Sri Rama, Bhakta Bhakta. The work also gives an insight of the poetic genius of Sri Krishna Premi Swamigal, which may be discussed during a later occasion. It is indeed the grace of Sri Rama that I have got an opportunity to present before you all one of the many gems of Krishna Premi Swamigal. I express my profound gratitude to the Department of Sanskrit for inviting me to speak here. At a platform meant for lectures on IKS, I was initially apprehensive to talk on this devotional hymn. However, the words of Vedavyasa convinced me about my choice. Yogo Jnanam Tatha Sankhya Vidya Shilpadi Karmacha Vedah Shastrana Vijnanam Etat Sarvam Janardanath. I believe it is not inappropriate to bring in the source of all knowledge in amidst a discussion on the Indian knowledge systems. After all, we believe in Sa Vidyaya Vimuktaye. What can be a better means to freedom than the sacred name of Sri Rama? With this, I conclude, quoting another verse from the Ramakathamrutasara, describing our most beloved Ramlala. Kausalya Bhavane, Hiranmaya Sabha, Madhye Chadolantere, Kridantam, Kamaniya Padmavadanam, Chavyakta Sambhashanam, Nana Ratna Vibhushanam, Narapaterananda Sambardhanam, Maya Darshita Shaishavam, Hridbhaje Twameva Me Swaminam. Jai Shri Ram.